Hans, there was some type of event in Berlin this morning. That's one of the places that you spend a significant amount of time in your role as a senior advisor at the Counter Extremism Project. And there is a question about whether this was a terror attack. So what exactly happened?
Thank you so much for having me, JJ. Yes, it's not only in the town that I spend quite a lot of time for my work, but also in the place where the last major significant terror attack in Germany happened in 2016, when a ISIS supporter rammed a truck into a Christmas market. I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners remember that. So it's in the exact same spot. What happened this morning, 10:45 local time, so at night in the US, a 29-year-old German of Armenian descent drove down this major thoroughfare through Berlin, rammed several people on the sidewalk, then went back to the street, rammed some more people on the sidewalk, and then finally rammed into a storefront. It wasn't really immediately clear what this particularly was. I think by now it's becoming more and more clear that it at least is not a accidental event. The guy was immediately held by bystanders. The police was immediately arresting him. They have not found, as speculation was, they would have found some kind of letter in the car. They found some political material concerning Turkey. As you know, there is still this issue between Armenia and Turkey for decades. There was a genocide during the First World War, and relations have always been tense. There seems to be, luckily, not yet a clear connection between this and this particular event. It killed, unfortunately, one female teacher who was on a trip from the state of Hesse to Berlin with her school class. Among the injured, and there are 6 seriously injured, 3 critically injured, and a couple of lightly injured individuals. Among those are quite a number of students from that class who are all now receiving treatment. The police, of course, is looking into the guy, as I said, 29-year-old Armenian German. He was known to the police as a low-level criminal, theft a couple of times, but he was not on the terrorism watch list. So it hopefully is just a rampage.
So do you get the sense that this person was a resident of Berlin, or you said he was known to police or somewhat local?
Yes, he's a German national and he's a resident. He was a resident in Berlin. The car wasn't his. The car is his sister's, but they both live in Berlin.
So do you know any details about why he was known to police?
Just as a criminal, so theft, no political motivation, no activity in extremist groups. So luckily, I mean, not really luckily for the victims, but it does look like this is a guy, because he was also in the videos of his arrest, he seemed extremely disturbed. It really does look like this is a crazy guy. I mean, for sure, he didn't have any visible health problems like a heart attack. Sometimes that happened a couple of years ago in Berlin, that someone actually had a heart attack and then drove into on the sidewalk and rammed into a shop. That definitely doesn't seem to be the case. So it was a deliberate act, but so far it doesn't look like it was a deliberate, ideologically motivated attack. It's just hopefully someone who just lost his marbles.
Based on what you know, what do you learn? What does this attack tell you?
Well, I mean, this is a couple of things went very well, and a couple of things, of course, are still quite tragic. I mean, this is the place where the attack happened. The specific place where the Christmas market happened is a hardened area right now. This is unfortunately the other side of the road. Sidewalks on that road are partially hardened in Berlin, but i.e. there are building blocks of plants that doesn't allow the cars to cross, but unfortunately not along the entire road. And so that's what really didn't work. He found the spot where there was nothing blocking his path. What seemed to have worked very well is the reaction of the emergency service, the police, the fire stations, the coordination across several federal states. This is now, of course, a criminal case that involves both Berlin and Hesse, where a good number of the victims are hailing from. All of that seems to have worked. There was a new law passed last year on psychosocial help in emergency situation as a reaction to the 2016 attack. That's been activated. So, the response, of course, has worked very well, but the prevention part there is a discussion to be had how much you can harden civil targets around any major city, I think anywhere in the world. But a couple more of those plant boxes would have possibly been helpful.
Let's talk about communications for just a moment. It's not lost on anybody in the U.S. that's looked into that situation at Uvalde, Texas situation at the Robb Elementary School, that the 18-year-old that engaged in the shooting there had been communicating with a young girl, supposedly in Germany. There have been numerous other cases where people from different countries have connected either via social media or telephones or whatever. And you have said on many occasions that there is a connection between some of the terrorist activity or the ideologies in Europe and here in the US. And we keep seeing similarities pop up almost on a monthly basis now. The Department of Homeland Security put out a bulletin yesterday, which we talked about here on Global, warning people about ideologies and about social media and about communications. So, Hans, you're an expert on this. Where do we stand with this communications problem? Because I do think it is a problem. And where do we go from here? How do we address it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, many of the ideologies that become violent, whether it's Islamist terrorism, left-wing extremism, or right-wing extremism, have transnationalized. And I can't help but wonder whether this has, because this transnationalization happened in parallel to the emergence of social media, which is, as we have discussed many times on the program, a very permissive environment for extremist ideas. Also, this global communication tool, of course, also allows extremists who used to be isolated to find each other. And that's the beauty of social media algorithm amplification. So if you have interest in particularly weird or strange ideas, you will be automatically led down a path that you meet other individuals who are interested in this kind of weird ideas. And if this is an extremist ideology, it is a technologically enabling transfer of knowledge and experience between extremist groups, which they simply have to take part rather than actually develop. If you remember 20, 30, 40 years ago, when terrorists needed to communicate, you had to send messengers, you had to write letters. It was really difficult to actually find some. Now, in this new communications environment, it's actually not very hard at all. When we do research on right-wing extremism, for example, we did quite a lot of research on online shops for right-wing extremists in Germany. We only had to find the initial shop, and then the social media platform's algorithm suggested to us other shops that existed in Germany from the same kind of a group of extremists. So this means that what happens in Berlin this morning, if it would have been, or what happened in Buffalo, or what happened in the shooting scenario in the high school in Texas, immediately in these circles gets distributed worldwide. That's why it's so important to make sure that at least if you can't help the news and therefore the methodology be distributed, that at least the manifestos and videos of these people who they do as part of their attack, that these don't get as easily distributed. And as we have seen one more time after the shooting incidents in Buffalo and others, this is still not really a problem that industry has solved.
This is really sad, and it is not changing, even though we keep talking about it and you keep coming up with these excellent ideas and your organization is working on it, and it's not changing much at all. And we might as well just say it like it is. It's not changing much at all, but the works, we still need to do the work. That doesn't mean we don't do the work, and thank you for the work you're doing. Anything you want to add before we go?
No, I think we got it all covered. If I hear anything else on the motivation, because I'm now investigating interrogating the guy, if there's any shift and they say, well, there is now, because there was news that he had left a letter in the car. Now, I just listened to the Interior Minister of Berlin, and she said, no, there was no letter in the car. If there's any shift on this one, I'll of course write you immediately an email.
Thank you so much, Hans.
Superb. Thanks.